They were there, and then they were gone. No struggle, no note, no goodbye. Just three women vanished from a quiet house on a warm summer night in Missouri. Their purses were still on the table. Their keys were still inside. Their cars were still in the driveway. And the door was unlocked. Whatever happened at 1717 East Delmar Street on the night of June 6, 1992? It has never been explained. This is the story of the Springfield Three. It was a night that was supposed to be joyful. Suzanne Streeter was 19 years old. Her best friend, Stacy McCall, had just turned 18. On the evening of June 6th, they walked across the stage at Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri. They shook hands. They collected their diplomas. They smiled for photographs. It was graduation night, the beginning of something new. After the ceremony, the two girls did what most teenagers do on a night like that. They went to a party, then possibly another one. Their friends were all around them. Music was playing. The summer was just starting. At some point late that night, Suzanne and Stacy made a decision. They changed their plans. The two of them had originally talked about staying at a friend's house that night, but somewhere in the early hours of June 7th, they decided to go somewhere else instead. They drove to Suzanne's home, a house on East Delmar Street, where Suzanne's mother, Cheryl Leavitt, lived. Cheryl was 47 years old. By all accounts, she was a warm and social woman. She was home that night. No one knows exactly what time Suzanne and Stacy arrived, based on when their friends last saw them leaving the party. Investigators have estimated it was somewhere around 2 in the morning, but that time is not confirmed. No one saw them arrive. No neighbor came forward to say they heard a car pull up or voices in the yard. The house on Delmar Street simply received them into the night. And that was the last anyone could say for certain. The next morning, a group of friends drove to the Delmar Street house. They were expecting to meet up with Suzanne and Stacy. They knocked on the door. No answer. They knocked again. Still nothing. They tried the door. It was unlocked. They pushed it open and stepped inside. What they found was a house that looked almost completely normal. The furniture was in place. Nothing was broken. Nothing was overturned. There was no sign of a fight. There was no sign of anything dramatic at all, except that no one was home. Suzanne's purse was there. Stacy's purse was there. Both of their identification cards were inside. Their car keys were on a surface in the house. Cheryl's car was sitting in the driveway. The friends called out through the rooms. No response. They checked the house more carefully. All three women were gone. The friends called the police. A missing persons report was filed, and investigators arrived at the scene. What the police found confirmed what the friends had already described. The house appeared undisturbed. No forced entry at any door or window. No blood. No signs of a physical confrontation. Just the quiet, ordinary interior of a family home. But two things stood out to investigators as strange. The first was an ashtray. Friends who knew the house reported that the ashtray had been emptied. That was unusual to them, out of place with the normal habits of the home. It was a small thing, but it nagged at them. The second detail was outside, right at the front door. The glass globe that covered the porch light was broken. The pieces had been swept up into a neat pile near the entrance. Someone had swept up that broken glass. Who had swept it up and when was never established. It was such a small, careful act. That is what made it feel so wrong. Investigators launched a full missing person search. In the days that followed, large search efforts were organized. In and around Springfield, people combed through parks and fields and wooded areas. The FBI was brought in to assist local police. Tips came in from across the region. None of it led anywhere. No trace of the three women was found. Not a shoe. not a piece of clothing, not a single piece of physical evidence beyond the walls of that house. It was as though Cheryl, Suzanne, and Stacy had simply ceased to exist. As weeks became months, investigators were forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. They had no crime scene, no confirmed cause of death, no witnesses who had seen or heard anything that night, no forensic trail leading outward from the house. What they had was an absence, and absences are very difficult to prosecute. Over the years, law enforcement has been direct about one thing. They believe these women are dead. They believe what happened that night was the result of foul play. But without remains, they cannot say how, or precisely when, or at whose hands. One of the most significant questions in this case has always been the changed plans. Suzanne and Stacy were not originally supposed to be at Delmar Street that night. Their late decision to change where they were sleeping meant that only a small number of people knew their final destination. If someone targeted them, if this was not random, that raises a difficult question. How did that person know where they were going? Did someone follow them from the party? Did someone already know they might end up at Cheryl's house? Or was it, as some have theorized, simply a terrible coincidence? A stranger, a wrong place, a wrong moment. No one can say for certain. The broken porch light adds another layer to this question. A porch light exists for a reason. It illuminates the entry. It lets people see who is at the door. If that globe was broken before the women arrived, the entrance to the house would have been darker than normal. Some investigators and analysts have suggested the light may have been deliberately broken, a way to obscure a face, a way to approach without being clearly seen. But it's also possible it was broken accidentally by anyone at any point before that night. The pile of swept glass remains unexplained. There is another thread that runs through this case, a name that has surfaced again and again over the decades: Robert Craig Cox. Cox was a convicted kidnapper and murderer from Florida. In the early 1990s, he reportedly made statements to other people. He allegedly said he knew what had happened to the Springfield Three. He allegedly said they would never be found. These statements, as they have been described publicly, were not made directly to investigators. They were passed along secondhand. Cox has denied any involvement in the case. He has never been charged. No physical evidence connecting him to the Delmar Street house or to the three women has been made public by law enforcement. But investigators have looked at him seriously over many years. His alleged statements have never been fully explained away, and they have never been confirmed. What Robert Cox actually knows, if anything, remains one of the open questions at the center of this case. Beyond Cox, there have been other individuals investigated over the years. None have been named publicly by law enforcement as confirmed suspects. The investigation has continued in the form of periodic tips, renewed media attention, and occasional searches of specific properties and locations. Some of those searches have reportedly included landfill areas. None have resulted in the recovery of remains. The case file grows longer every year as the answers do not come. When investigators and analysts try to reconstruct what might have happened that night, several frameworks emerge. One possibility is that the perpetrator or perpetrators knew the women, or at least knew of them. The lack of any struggle inside the house is striking. 3 women, a mother, and 2 teenagers disappeared without any evidence of a fight. That suggests either they were taken by complete surprise or they did not perceive a threat until it was too late. Or some have said they may have opened the door to someone they recognized. Another possibility is that this was the work of more than one person. Some investigators have suggested it would be difficult for a single individual to control 3 people quickly enough to leave no trace. Multiple perpetrators working together could explain the speed and the silence. A third possibility is that one person, alone, with knowledge of the home or the women's routines, was able to take control of the situation before any of the three could respond. The neat pile of swept glass, the emptied ashtray, the undisturbed interior. Some have read those details as signs of a calculated, controlled mind. Someone who planned, someone who stayed calm, someone who took 3 people from a house in the middle of the night and left almost nothing behind. None of these frameworks have been confirmed. They are the shapes that the evidence and the absence of evidence allows investigators to imagine. There is something uniquely haunting about this case. Most disappearances eventually yield something. A body found years later, a confession, a piece of clothing, a phone record, something that allows the story to close, even if only partially. The Springfield Three has yielded almost nothing. 3 decades of investigation, searches, tips, and media attention. 3 decades of families waiting for answers. Cheryl Levitt's family, Suzanne Streeter's family, Stacy McCall's family. These are real people who have lived with this open wound for more than 30 years. They have never had a funeral. They have never had a grave to visit. They have had only uncertainty. The questions in this case remain as open today as they were in the summer of 1992. Where are Cheryl, Suzanne, and Stacy? Who came to that house on Delmar Street that night? Why was the porch light broken? Why was the glass swept up so carefully? Did someone follow those 2 girls home from a graduation party? Does Robert Cox know something he has never fully disclosed? Is there a witness somewhere who has stayed silent for more than 3 decades? And if so, why? The Springfield Three disappeared on a night that was supposed to be one of the happiest of their lives. Diplomas, photographs, parties, the whole summer ahead. By 2 or 3 in the morning, they were inside a quiet house on East Delmar Street. By the time their friends came knocking a few hours later, they were simply gone. The door was unlocked. The keys were on the table. The cars were in the driveway. And whatever happened in those dark, silent hours has never been spoken out loud by anyone who knows the truth. Somewhere out there, the answer exists. It has to, but for now, the porch light stays broken, and 3 women remain missing.